and welcome to episode 20 of the Livewire Game Show. This week we are going to cover E3, which was on over the last 6 or 7 days or so. We'll be dabbling into a bit of Summer Game Fest as well, I'm sure, when we're talking about it, but this is mainly covering E3 and our reactions to it and what we enjoyed, didn't enjoy, were disappointed by, etc, etc, etc. Everything. Disappointed by everything. Before we get into it, we will have our weekly catch-up, see how everyone is, and seeing as he threw me in at the deep end last week, Stephen, off you go, buddy. How have you been? What have you been up to?
Yeah,
the North remembers.
The North remembers. Yeah, I got my 5G implant. Thank you, Bill Gates. Hashtag sponsored.
Sponsored
so yeah,
by COVID vaccines. Have you actually? Sorry, have you seen the really cringy ad for that with James Corden in the States?
No.
Go look. It's so cringy. But yeah.
For the vaccine or for Microsoft?
For the vaccine.
Of all the people
screaming
that
out for people
fucking hair
over there.
It's a bit.
Jesus.
It's cringy. Anyway, sorry, Steve.
James Corden. Anyway, yeah. So I was up in the weekend, got my vaccine. Haven't developed any new arms or anything, unfortunately. I'm no better at gaming, unfortunately. All the good. I'm not magnetized either. None of the good stuff. So,
Just
maybe the second dose. Just yeah. And gaming wise, haven't had much time this week, but
yeah, that's been a topic of conversation between me and you all week. Stephen, have you played this yet? No.
Yeah.
Stephen, have you played it yet? No.
So I played a little bit of Intermission. So I completed chapter 1 just there like an hour ago. And I'm really enjoying it. That 60 FPS update was everything it needed. Playing as Yuffie is strange, but I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with it. I feel like I'm probably just spamming the shit just because that's all I can do. But it's such a beautiful game. The Fort Condor thing is quite addictive. I just completed that off today.
No, the only pity with Fort Condor is there's only a limited amount of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
I imagine we'll get more of that, I say, in part 2. Maybe a mini game in the Ghost House or something.
Dylan, don't say those things.
I might complete the first one by then.
Do you know what? I don't want to get into too much spoiler territory with it, but I'm gonna predict that part 2 is nearly finished. But we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that when Steven's finished it. But I think part 2 is a lot closer than we think. Fingers crossed. I hope I'm not wrong saying that. But sorry, Stephen, continue.
Yeah. No, so then other than that was just catching up on the E3 conferences. I didn't get to watch them live, so went back and kind of could skip through the shite Ubisoft. And
thing is, Ubisoft wasn't even the worst one.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, Xbox.
But you expect them to be.
Oh, fucking whatchamacallit holds the record for the worst one.
Square.
Fucking Gearbox.
Square was bad, Jesus.
Gearbox.
I didn't watch the Gearbox one, actually.
Oh my goodness. They basically recorded it on the set of the Borderlands movie. It was behind the scenes.
Oh yeah,
it was the trend on Twitter was sometimes it's better to just not have a conference.
Oh god.
It was horrendous.
And then the only other thing was I bought Miles Morales as well for the PS5.
You haven't played that yet? Oh.
No, he was up north and he's like, any games you want? I was like, oh, look up Returnal. £79. Like, no. How about Miles Morales? Oh, it's only £20. Like, get me that. So
it's good. Like for what Miles Morales is, like it's a DLC in all. It's a glorified expansion that was released for the PS5. It's the intermission of Spider-Man. Yeah. But it's fantastic. Apart from the final boss, the whole thing's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to playing that. I'm gonna wait and see if I can get an OLED TV and play it on that.
It'll look well.
It'll be gorgeous. But so that's been my week. How about you, Dill? Have you been?
Good. Yeah, much better than last week. I've played a lot actually this week. A lot of Destiny and a lot of Scavengers, and I've jumped into my backlog quite a bit.
Oh,
yeah. So I wanted to finish off the Phoenix Rising DLC, which I did.
What's
I
that
jumped
for?
back.
Sorry.
Switch.
Oh, Immortals Phoenix Rising.
Immortal.
Sorry.
Yeah, Immortals Phoenix Rising. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think I spent €50 on it last night. Go on.
Yeah, playing Horizon as well. I'm nearly finished that. I think I might have like 2 or 3 main missions left, and then there was
Horizon Zero
ones.
Dawn.
Yeah,
Okay.
just to get kind of caught up to speed for
You
the
playing
new
on PC or PS5?
PS4.
That's about PS4.
PS4. Yeah. Which, yeah, it's hard to aim with a fucking bow and arrow in 4 FPS. But
The pity you
yeah.
couldn't transfer your save to PC.
Yeah.
See, I'm enjoying playing it
It's-
as a couch game though. That's the thing.
It's
I like
glorious on PC.
yeah, and like I do appreciate that it is, but that kind of style of game I enjoy sitting back, chilling out, not having to kind of sit at a desk, kind of focus on it. But yeah, playing that, like two or three main stories left, and then there was one that kind of surprised me. Started playing fucking Avengers.
Oh,
And I really like it. As much as it's fucking gotten its shit, I'm about 30 something % through the game, and there is faults. There's like little things. If you were kind of gonna nitpick, and if you were reviewing it, you would look at that kind of stuff. But as a whole, like the transition between characters in terms of gameplay is ridiculous. Like at the start, you're playing as Miss Marvel, and the first Avenger you meet is Hulk, and he's in his Hulk form. He's not Bruce, and he's chasing you, and just that whole kind of how would you even say it? Choreographed kind of running alongside him, and he's kind of shifting the terrain as you run through it. It's crazy. It's so good, and it barely stutters, and that's on a PS4 as well. So I was expecting it to take massive hits in all those kind of fast-paced environments, but yeah, I love it. Like I really do, really enjoy it. And like I'm 30% through it, so I can't see. I know I'm into the kind of main setup of it, like of mission selects and having to go through all that kind of tedious stuff. But I don't think much is going to change. Like I haven't discovered all the characters yet, so yeah.
I think from watching, I haven't obviously played Avengers, but from watching reviews of it, that was the general consensus. Was the story was actually very well done. That the campaign is actually quite good. It's just the rest of the bullshit is what ruined it. Like
See, that's all I'm playing it for is the campaign,
and that's fine. Yeah, that's 100% fine. Yeah,
and I think a lot of people just want to, like with the amount of live service games now, it's like, what's the end game? It's like I'm not playing every game for an end game. I'm playing every game for what's before the end game. Do you know kind of way? I want the story.
Yeah, like a lot of the anger towards Avengers was when they showed it off at E3 2019, I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Could be wrong. When they showed it off at E3, they said, no microtransactions, and that was it was an absolute lie. Every character has their own €10 pass and skins through the roof that you can only get with real money. Like it was just riddled with stuff. And then the character upgrade trees were so grindy to get them all done that by the time you actually got to the fun stuff of the game, you'd already finished the campaign.
Yeah,
but that's what the reviews. I'm only speaking from what I heard.
That was the first thing I looked at was the store, and it's quite a big store in terms of fucking skins and shit like that. It really is. There's no denying that. But like that's what I was thinking. If you were playing it in terms of trying to collect like all the comic accurate skins throughout the like 40s, 50s, 60s, blah blah blah, that would get annoying. But like I still have my base outfit. Miss Marvel is the central character. It's like I still have the base outfit for her. It's like, but it doesn't deter from my enjoyment of the game. You know, kind of way. Which I know reviewers are looking for this kind of stuff, but as a generic fucking blockbuster AAA game, I think it's great. Really, like,
I think didn't it launch quite badly as well, though. I think at launch it was quite glitchy. Like it was quite. There was a lot of bugs in there. They've obviously ironed them out at this stage, which is good.
The only bug I get is when you get a trophy and it fucking cuts out on the sound for a couple of seconds. But I'd say that's more a fucking Sony thing than a
it's a weird one.
Square Enix. Yeah,
That's a
just the
weird
sound,
one.
literally about 3 to 5 seconds. But yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna recommend it, but I'm really enjoying my playthrough.
That's all that
Really
matters.
enjoying it. So yeah, I've been playing that quite a bit. That's it really. Done a bit of reading as well this week, catching up on stuff. Can't think of anything else. Yeah, what about you, Kev?
This week's been mainly Final Fantasy VII. The expansion, intermission, whichever one it is. I think intermission's the
With
actual.
Colin Farrell.
Yeah, intermission's the actual expansion. Colin Farrell, but yeah, playing that and playing Ratchet and Clank. But yeah, as Stephen was saying, like about intermission, I really like it. Just being back in the world of Midgar was fucking great, and having it in 60 FPS with all the shiny stuff as well. Like again, I'm not gonna spoil anything because I've finished it both on normal and hard, and done all the extra stuff for the trophies. So, but I won't go doing any spoilers for Steven's sake. But the characters looking like the I don't know what they did, but it took me quite a while to get over how good the characters look, and it made
Is
me
it the
quite...
same engine, or is it new?
Sorry.
Is it the same engine? Yeah, yeah.
It's the same engine, but I think they did some magic stuff with the PS5's capabilities to make everything look great. You know, I was showing off some videos to the guys just of the cutscenes from the end game, and it's just the small things like clothes moving in the wind or clothes bouncing as characters are walking. It just looks realistic.
Yeah.
It's like stuff responds the way it should respond, and like Barrett might as well be a real human being with how well he looks. I know the other characters like Cloud and the female characters, they've got that kind of airbrushed to perfection look, which is kind of unrealistic, hyper realistic. But Barrett might as well be a real person. His facial expressions are spot on, so everything looks great. But yeah, back just on the gameplay, it takes a bit of a while to get used to playing as the different. So for anyone who hasn't played it, they changed it so in Final Fantasy VII Remake you can swap between characters at will, and it can be 2 or 3 characters, and you can control Cloud and then go and control Tifa for a bit, and then have Cloud perform abilities and then swap back to another character. Where in this one you only play as Yuffie, but you have your partner Sonon. But you can direct Sonon to do attacks or do specific things, and set up Sonon the same way you would with the other character, with all the characters in the remake. But you can't actually switch to him and play as him. So getting used to that took a bit of getting used to. And Yuffie's a bit of a glass cannon. Like, she has high output of damage, but especially at the beginning in your first playthrough on normal, she got low HP, so she dies quite quick. So, but yeah, she's great. Once you actually get used to the rhythm of playing as her, she's fantastic to play as.
Would that be like in where when you're playing that kind of glass cannon character, like mages and stuff like that, you have a pet? So he's the one that absorbs all the damage while you is that what your Sonon is supposed to do?
Sonon is supposed to do that. And sometimes it works very well, and sometimes it doesn't work very well. And it's like, oh, you're dead again. Cheers, buddy. You had full health and you just got... So it's about timing your telling him what to do, that you don't tell him to do something and then he just takes the boss's full fucking wipe ability in one go. So it takes a while getting used to. Fort Condor, which is the minigame, is great. I'd like to see it expanded on in the part 2 of the main game. But really that was Fort Condor was just about finding the cheese setup that just guarantees you a win, and once you find that, then it's guaranteed wins. But yeah, it's the only problem I had with that was that it's not that there's a limited amount of what you can do, but there's a limited amount of what there's a point of doing. That after you've beaten the Grandmaster, there's nothing else to do. Like you can grind coins to buy more stuff, but because the expansion is so limited in scope, there's not really much point to doing it apart from just because you enjoy it. But yeah,
do you think it's better off doing all that kind of stuff throughout the main campaign before you get to the end? Or
Well,
are
you
able to
have
do
you
it?
kind of have to do it in.
Okay.
So, Intermissions, it has 2 chapters in it. Now they are very long chapters. Like it took me, I think, like 11 or 12 hours to complete my first normal playthrough, which is fucking great, by the way. For a €20 DLC to get that much playtime was
Is it that
fantastic.
cheap? Jesus
20
Christ.
quid
okay.
DLC, and I
That's,
put in
yeah.
about 22 hours, I think, in total. So like, there's plenty of content there for the price of it, and it's high quality content. I think there's maybe 4 bosses. Could be wrong. I think there's 4 bosses, and then you unlock VR simulation stuff. That has an extra couple of bosses, and sorry, Stephen, I spoiled this on you the other day, but you also unlock a VR boss for the main game. So once you finish the campaign, you unlock a boss that you fight as the main team, and my god, he's fucking hard. But yeah, but there's plenty of content there, and then it just makes me excited for part 2.
Does it kind of lead in story wise? Because I know Steven, I don't want to
blink once for yes, twice for no. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no,
So
you
the
messaged me afterwards, and you were just like, what I think you said, like, remake part 2 is coming soon. Like after that ending, it has to be soon.
It's not necessarily the ending that makes me think it's soon. It's more so that I feel like a lot of the assets are already done for it, and it's just about doing everything else.
I hope so.
Yeah, obviously when you finish the intermission, we can talk about it more. But I'd actually like to do a podcast talking about it if we could. I know Dylan probably has no interest in doing that because he hasn't played it. But like, if me and Steven maybe want to do an extra one somewhere, we'll just do it on a Monday or something and just chat about it. I'll be more than up for doing that. I loved it, and it's the same as when I finished Cyberpunk. It's the same as when I finished Final Fantasy Remake last year. I'm sitting here going, I want to play more, but there's nothing more for me to do. So yeah, it's a bit shit. But I also, before we move on to E3, I need to talk about Ratchet and Clank quickly, because game.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so Louise has nearly finished it. I'm about 40% of the way through, I think. That game has no right to look as good as it looks. And I know it's animated. I know it's a cartoon. It's not the hyper realistic games that we get, the triple like Cyberpunk or Grand Theft Auto or anything like that. But my god, is that game beautiful! Like, the play spaces are just some of the best I've seen in any game. Like, Insomniac did an incredible job of creating the different planets in that game, because they are all stunning looking. I think in terms of, like, the game's great, gameplay is fantastic, the guns all feel fantastic. I think one thing that people need to maybe remember when they're playing Ratchet and Clank is that it originally was a game aimed for a younger audience. It was a kids game originally, so a lot of the dialogue and story writing is aimed for a younger audience. It's cheesy with some innuendos thrown in for older people. It's a classic Simpsons kind of thing where it's like, it's for kids but there's sex jokes. And Ratchet and Clank's kind of the same, is it's for kids but there is kind of mature undertones. But like, in terms of the game, it's so much fun to play, but like, it looks incredible. Like,
do you think that kind of hinges on the fact that it was purely developed for next gen?
Yes, and it makes
Isn't it amazing?
It makes me slightly concerned for the likes of Horizon and God of War. Elden Ring's another one coming to both past gen and current gen, or next gen, whatever we want to call it. I don't think it creates a case of, well, you shouldn't make games for last gen because people can't get consoles, blah 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 blah. We can get into that, but yeah,
it just shows the boundaries.
It shows, yeah. I feel like this is a personal thing. This may or may not be true, but I can't see how God of War, pull a name out of a hat, how God of War would not be held back somewhere by them having to make it for last gen. Now, It'll probably still be fantastic because it's God of War and Santa Monica are a fantastic studio. But I don't see how they can realize their full vision while developing it for last gen.
It's just
happy
another
to be
unnecessary blip in the road. That's all.
I'm happy to be wrong, and if I said that in the wrong space, I would get a hell of a lot of fucking hate for it. But I don't see it. It's like going to the Sistine Chapel when the roof's getting painted, and it's saying you get to paint that, but you also have to paint this with oil pastels while blindfolded.
You're making a Renaissance joke to two people who probably don't know much about it.
Stephen, I was in the Sistine Chapel twice, okay? I understood that reference.
No, it's like...
You uncultured swine.
I'm
out of here, right? I'm gone. Fuck this.
Yeah.
Just the 5G talking, Stephen.
I'm happy to be wrong. I'm more than happy to be wrong. But seeing a game that was built only for next gen compared to Cyberpunk, perfect example, was built for both, well, only last gen, but also with next gen for PC. It's a next gen game, and it really limited the PS4 one while creating other issues elsewhere. I don't know. I don't see how.
Well, do you know what might happen? And there are rumors about. Don't know if you saw this, but there's a listing on the PlayStation database for Demon Souls on PS4.
See, and that's that I was actually going to get onto that, and this actually comes to later on what we're going to talk about, the showcases. Gearbox are bringing Godfall to PS4 now, and I think that's the way to do it. I think you develop the game in the best possible way, and then strip it back for what you need to release it on a previous gen.
100%.
And that means they might have to wait 6 months. They might have to wait 4 or 5, 6 months, or a year. And then they get it. Or, just do what Xbox are doing, and that's a fantastic thing that Xbox are doing with they're going to be, next gen games going to be streamable on an Xbox One. But
it appeals to both kind of crowds then. Like, I'm screaming for just make it for next gen. I don't even have a next gen console. Yeah. Like, that's just you don't want these companies to have to hinder themselves so much just because they have to kind of go over that hurdle of put it out for last gen as well. And
I think there will come a point.
With Godfall, it's great.
Yeah. I think there will come a point where Xbox or PlayStation just go, or not even Xbox or PlayStation. It could be Bandai Namco from Software or fucking Bungie go, no, we're not making that game for last gen. It's been 5 years since the PS5 came out. We are not making any more PS, and eventually it'll happen. Obviously, there's different factors are leading into it, but I don't know. Like I was saying to Steven today, that PS5 games perform so well in comparison to PC games. And that hasn't been the case with consoles ever towards PC. That, like, Ratchet and Clank performs so well in comparison to any PC games that are out. Like,
and I think, do you know what? Like, this
next gen
consoles
are powerful as fuck.
Yeah,
but controversies.
I think what makes the PlayStation 5, I think Ratchet and Clank would never work on PC currently. Because from my understanding, you need the SSD to be able to create the rift so that you can transfer instantaneously between the two worlds.
So when you do that, it's great.
So in that respect, the PS5 is capable of doing more than a PC currently because PC haven't caught up with that hardware. But when they do, we're gonna get amazing games when PC has that capability built in.
Yeah.
This is the first time the console has kind of one-upped the PC ecosystem because they've made this piece of kit that PC can't do until we get dedicated units that way, which will be a long time.
It makes me excited. It makes me really excited for what they're going to be able to do. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like, if they had released this for PS4 and PS5 simultaneously, it would have limited something. So if that would have been the case with a game the scale of Ratchet and Clank, can you imagine what it'll be for God of War or Horizon Forbidden West or with anything else that's coming down the line, the next Spider-Man game. Like, yeah, they got, when developers are allowed to fully embrace the next generation consoles, they're gonna achieve some pretty incredible things. They really are, and hopefully, look, more people get to play your game, the better. But you're also an artist, and you want to realize you're.
All Zack Snyder on their ass.
They're gonna Zack Snyder, for example. They're gonna want to realize their full artistic vision. So, eventually, I think developers will be like, "No, we are not doing that. We're just not. We don't care how much we have to. You're not gonna pay us. We're not doing that."
That's the stance that they need to take. Like we said last week with Sekiro and fucking the level difficulty. It's like, we didn't make it to be played like that. If, like the way you Godfall released on PS5 and then went back to PS4, they'd done that long term, that would be great. Add the extra 6 months on.
Yeah.
So
June 21st, 2021. The date Cyberpunk should have actually released. Because that's when it's coming back to the PS Store.
Jesus.
We'll see. We'll see what it's like.
That's the date it should have released. For next gen only. I will die on that hill. Anyway, let's move on to the main topic, because that's the longest catch-up segment we've ever done. I played a lot of games this week, okay? I've had a good week of games. In amongst all the football that's been on. Right, E3. Suppose I'll kick us off with my overall impressions, and we'll chat about what's good and bad and weird and pointless and fantastic, whatever. So what did you just think of E3 overall? I think for me, it wasn't the best E3, to put it politely. I think Xbox had a fantastic show. I think Devolver Digital's was great if you're into that sort of stuff. But I think overall, it was a poor E3.
I don't know where I saw it, but it was somewhere on Twitter, and someone said, and it kind of perfectly summed it up in terms of, it felt like an E3 for last generation. There wasn't really a lot there wasn't a lot announced, but there wasn't a lot of groundbreaking kind of things. It was a lot of, we already knew this was in the pipeline. Here's the, not even confirmation, here's just another look at it from,
I agree.
That's
exactly
cinematic.
Yeah. I think aside from Xbox's one, that is definitely true. And you know, I kind of thought about, maybe I thought it was an appropriate analogy, that E3 this year, without the crowds there and without everything going on the way it normally would, it was the exact same as the Premier League without fans in the stadium. It's the same thing. It's great to see it. It's great to have it. You get excited for what's coming, but it's missing something. And it was missing the crowds. It really made a big difference. And also, it was missing some of the bigger announcements that maybe would have happened. I think when you're watching it, you have to kind of realize that developers have been under a lot of strain over the last 16 to 18 months. Everything's getting delayed. There's nothing that can be done about it. So stuff that may have been announced at this E3 is probably pushed to the Game Awards or to Gamescom or to individual events somewhere down the line. But yeah, it was great to have E3. I loved having it. I love E3. But it was lacking somewhere. It felt weird. And I hope
what this E3 has shown me anyway is that E3 is obsolete. There's no need to have E3 as a thing. Like, all of these were just separate developer showcases.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that this was E3 other than the fact I knew it was E3. If they were just up on YouTube, I would have just thought they were all individual developer showcases.
Well, if there's a bigger event going on at the same time where you have the floor and you have all the demos, is it still obsolete? Like,
so that's the thing. Like, with as you said, you need the fans, but I think you need more than that. I think it just needs that in-person presence, because without that, this is just developer showcases. And if that is what E3 becomes or is going to be, just get rid of it. Let it die a death. Because I would rather, you need someone like, I always say his surname wrong, but you need someone like Jeff there.
Jeff Keighley.
I always say Jeff Knightley.
Do you know
I say
what?
Knightley, I don't know why.
Jeff Knightley.
You need him you need him at the helm, because
that's what he
that,
goes by at the weekends.
Yeah, Mr. Knightley.
Yeah, I think, you know what? I actually think that was something I actually thought about today as well. Is that it was missing someone like that. So
Yeah.
it was missing someone going, and here's this, and and someone just guiding you from presentation to presentation. Because without that host, it felt very robotic almost. It was
Well,
like
it makes it not E3. You need to
Yeah.
have a presence of E3 there. And like through all the showcases, there was no one who was an E3 person. They were all the developers.
And you know what? I think for the likes of the Summer Game Fest, I'll include that because it was a big showcase. Ubisoft had a big showcase. Xbox had a long one. But for the smaller ones, for the likes of Square Enix's one was relatively small in comparison to previous stuff. Capcom's was very small. Bandai Namco virtually non-existent. Gearbox's one was shamefully bad. If it had just an independent host, someone like Paris or just someone of that, like Paris or someone like that, to guide you through, to guide you from, and we're gonna go to Gearbox to see what they're doing, and now we're gonna move on to Square Enix, and they're gonna show 20 minutes of stuff, and then we're gonna do this. So rather than have aside from the Xbox one, the rest just felt very small, kind of. Yeah, just there for the sake of it.
Video.
Yeah,
it's like they just press play in a video and you're just watching.
But
a
you know
video
what? Saying that, I still enjoyed it. I still loved watching all this stuff and taking notes of, oh, this is coming out, and there was some fantastic stuff shown. It was missing something. It really was.
Personally, I felt everything was very isolated of each other.
Yes, that's the word I was trying to think of. Yeah. It felt very isolated. Yeah.
Like it needed that kind of continuous. If they amalgamated Summer Games Fest and E3 into a fucking one-day event, here's 3 hours, take a break for an hour, and here's another 3 hours. That would have highlighted to me a lot more than here's maybe 2 or 3 things you're interested in on a Friday, and then Saturday it's like the whole morning there was nothing, and then maybe there was something at 6 o'clock in the evening that you were interested in, and then it was Sunday. It was like at that stage I was like, I'd rather just get my information from Twitter and YouTube because I don't want to sit through all that. It just felt very
bit scattered.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think you mentioned Summer Game Fest. I think there's a couple of causes of it feeling like that. A is Summer Game Fest now exists, so Jeff Keighley used to be the host of E3, and he would guide people from thing to thing, and he'd be on stage doing everything. It was fantastic, but he's now doing his own thing, and I feel like, I know Summer Game Fest isn't set up to be a competitor to E3, but it has inadvertently become a competitor to the E3. So if you look at, if Elden Ring had been part of the Xbox show or the PC Gamer show or the Future Game show, and it had that big hitter in the middle of the weekend for E3, it suddenly makes E3 go, oh, this is so much better. Yeah. But because Jeff has now said it, and it's great, like, Summer Game Fest was pretty good, in fairness. In comparison to the rest of it, it was just as good as some of it, or better than most of it. So having that on its own kind of takes away from E3. Secondly, obviously everyone's under strain over the last 18 months, so a lot of announcements probably got pushed elsewhere. And also PlayStation aren't there. This is the first year, yes, that PlayStation haven't done something with E3 or around the time of E3. And we've no announcement of when it is. Because PlayStation used to fit in on that Sunday spot. They used to do a Sunday slot really early in the morning for us. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was kind of like it finished the whole weekend on a, oh, Sony just did this. This is amazing. Whereas now it was like, just kind of sizzled out. It was like once the Xbox show was over, we got all excited for all that sort of stuff. Square Enix finished on a high, in fairness to them, with no, it didn't finish on a high because they showed off Final Fantasy and people kind of went, what the fuck is this? But it just kind of sizzled. Like the E3 showcase is just kind of sizzled out, and then Nintendo usually come out with something big, and people are like, oh, they're gonna announce the Switch Pro. and then they didn't. And don't get me wrong, if you're a Nintendo fan, they showed off quite a bit that you're interested in, the likes of Metroid and Zelda. But for the common gamer, it was like, okay.
Just a lot of the titles just didn't warrant an E3 status. Like it didn't need that kind of platform to announce what was announced. Like to me, each developer only announced possibly one thing each that I would
they all
actually
kind of had
be 100% interested
two things. They all kind of had something at the start and something
first
at the
to the
end.
last. Yeah. And that takes away from it because you're like, oh, this is gonna be a lot of filler. Whereas if it was all put together as a one, you're like, holy shit, we don't know what we're gonna get. You know?
Yeah. I think there's a few reasons for it. But yeah,
So overall, we're all a little disappointed.
A little disappointed.
Individually, I thought they were all really below par.
But you know what? I was expecting it to be that way because of where we're at currently. I was expecting to be a bit underwhelmed by it.
I think this is the thing. It's like, what's the point in doing it then?
Yeah.
If like we all know it's been a rough fucking year and a half or whatever, but if anything, it probably would have been the opposite. They probably would have spent more on production values.
No. Okay, the likes of the showcases, yes, but not the ESA.
It was just,
and like, I think that kind of touches on Steven's point of it is obsolete. And I think in the format we had this year, I don't think they'd get away with another year of that. I think the only way E3 survives or rises from the ashes is if next year is an in-person event.
And they bring their costs down by like 70%.
They need to bring it down to... It's crazy. It's 6 figures for some of this nonsense. Like, it's crazy. So I think a lot of developers and publishers will go, we don't need to go to E3. It costs too much. Why would we bother? But if they do, it needs to be an in-person event next year where, it's just fucking full of people. So we have to... The ESA need to hope that COVID is gone by next summer, because otherwise it won't survive. It really won't.
No.
Anyway, what was the good of E3? And straight out, it was Xbox. It was the Xbox showcase. I think the Xbox showcase. If Xbox had said, "No, we're doing our own thing this year," E3 would have just been an afterthought. Because if you take that Xbox showcase out of there, there's nothing. Like there really is nothing if you take Xbox out of there.
True. Like I'm looking through the list that I have of the games that were announced since. The ones that I'm like highlighting, going I'm interested in, are all Xbox games.
Yeah.
There's like if Xbox weren't there, that E3 would have just been.
It would have failed.
Muck. Absolute muck.
Yeah,
and in saying that now, like I think Xbox's E3 wasn't blow me out of the water amazing. I think in comparison to everything else it was, but there were some really cool announcements and Game Pass and everything basically coming day one. 27 out of 30 being day one. Such an amazing thing. Like I think the reason everyone is kind of going Xbox really blew it away this year is because the competition was so bad. But like Xbox are being very pro-consumer and they need to be rewarded for that. Like they need to be told you're going the right way. But in terms of the actual showcase, it was standard. Like it's a few cool things, but overall the showcase itself was standard. It's just they looked amazing in comparison to the rest of the shite.
That's exactly how I saw it.
I agree and disagree for the Xbox one. Like,
but to me, it was not rose-tinted glasses, but everything else was subpar. So it's kind of like, oh, this has my interest. Oh, this is another good thing, but it wasn't.
Yeah, but if you compare that Xbox showcase to even previous years, like it holds up against some of the big Sony ones. It doesn't beat any of the big Sony ones. Like the year that Final Fantasy Remake was announced, it doesn't beat that. But in terms of like The Last of Us Part 2 was announced, it holds a candle. It holds itself up to that.
I disagree because I think Xbox's problem has consistently been exclusives.
Yeah.
And this year they have those things.
Oh yeah, and the promise of more.
But I think the problem was we knew about them. Like Sony consistently come out, and when you think of their big ones, they blow you out of water with an announcement that's not expected, like the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Yeah.
Xbox don't have that. They're leaky as fuck, and everyone knew what to expect.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with that statement. I agree with that statement.
But now in saying that, the exclusives are Starfield has me really interested.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I think the one big
as well,
yeah,
like
but the
you
one
said.
big
Exactly.
surprise was at the end of the Xbox conference was Redfall, which was the Arcane Studios game. Which that's the one we didn't. I mean, it's something we didn't know about.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which is maybe actually
Interesting,
Stephen White
yeah,
was at
you're
the
right.
end.
yeah.
Yeah. And they also announced the Outer Worlds too. That was
They shadow announced a few things. Yeah,
it was half expected that the Outer Worlds 2 would get
Yeah.
announced.
because Fable was announced as well.
No,
The biggest
Fable
surprise
didn't
to me
make an
was-
appearance at this.
No, but Fable. They said they're working on the next Fable.
Yeah, they kind of mentioned some stuff. They said work is continuing on Fable. They announced that last year.
World 2. Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, but they said work is continuing on Fable, work is continuing on the Elder Scrolls, etc., etc. But they didn't deep dive into that sort of stuff because they'd not the show, which makes me kind of concerned how far away that Fable game is. But I think the Outer Worlds 2 will always hold the title for best trailer at E3
Yeah,
because that was fantastic.
breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, it was breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
But I think like the Xbox showcase this year, I get what you're saying that it stood out because the rest was so poor, and that's probably partially true. But I felt like this Xbox E3 showcase was the culmination of their hard work over the last 4 to 5 years, say, with Game Pass started to take off a couple of years ago, and now it's been really realized as the best subscription service, arguably in any entertainment. It's as good as anything out there, as far as I'm aware. And then you had the hard bringing in Bethesda, taking over Bethesda to PlayStation have their exclusive, but Xbox went, we're not going to make our own exclusives. We'll just buy
I'll
some.
buy the studios.
Yeah, we'll just buy some exclusives. So I think having Starfield and giving Starfield a release date, whether it meets that release date or not, is another question. Well, showing off a bit more of Starfield, and hopefully we get some gameplay over the next while. But there was plenty there. Stalker 2, I was not interested at all in the first game, but good lord, that game looks good.
Yeah, I
That-
was
that
just gonna say.
game-
I think that's my game of
Brando.
E3. I think
That's your game
Like,
of the
it
we're not at that point in the podcast yet. God
Well,
damn
I
it,
haven't decided
Stephen.
if it is yet. I haven't decided yet, but it made me go and say like I need to look up to see do I actually have Stalker on Steam? Did I just pick it up by accident at some stage? So
Yeah,
that's
like
cool.
there was some good stuff there. Like they showed off some more Battlefield, even though it's not an Xbox game. They showed it off, and we got to see a Sea of Thieves update with
That was my favorite
a
part of the
crossover.
Xbox.
Do you know
And that
what
was the
though?
DLC, for fuck's
I
sake.
wonder is that a sign of bigger things going on at Disney? Does Johnny Depp have the part back for a film?
No, the only parts he has in it are his movie lines,
For now.
and the rest of the things are done by a voice actor.
Oh, fair enough.
Oh,
Then I don't
I
like
didn't
it.
know that.
That's stupid. Fuck that.
But yeah, the fact that they kept that under wraps
Yeah.
and it comes out next week is fucking huge. Like that's it. Like
what's that next week? Wow,
next
yeah.
is June 22nd. Yeah, and like Rare
Yeah,
are still an indie company to me.
Mm.
Like what fucking Banjo Kazooie and fucking Sea of Thieves are their two culminations, and they got a partnership with Disney. Like that's huge, and what a franchise as well. You know, or
Works
like
well. with your game.
They had other stuff. They
Pirates,
showed
sorry.
off like Psychonauts 2, 10 more games that come onto Game Pass from Bethesda that are already out. Party Animals got a 2022 release date. I was super happy about that being mentioned. It's not been canned. They showed off some Halo, the story trailer and a multiplayer trailer, both out separately.
And it's out this year.
It's out this year. For now.
All 21. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be out in December. Plague Tale got a sequel.
See, all these kind of
looks
things are
gorgeous.
very fillery to me. Like, I'm a AAA shill. Like, I want my big announcements.
They're all AAA stuff.
I don't mean it in a bad way to the indies and stuff like that, but if I've no interest, it doesn't kind of flesh out the showcase.
The announcement, well, not the announcement, but I guess the announcement of Diablo 2 coming to Xbox as well was cool.
Yeah, it
That's September, isn't it?
Diablo
September
2
21st,
is 23rd of September.
That'll be Switch.
Yeah, Outer Worlds 2, we already mentioned it, got announced. That's probably a couple of years away. Can I just say that I know car games have looked good for a long time, but Forza 5 looks... it's all ray tracing. It all looks great. Ray tracing is the best thing ever created. It looks stunning. I know a couple of the guys were quite happy about that. I grew out of car games when I could drive my own. But that got announced and released at the same time, which was good. People weren't expecting that, which was good. And then obviously they finished off on Redfall, which is vampire co-op nonsense from Arcane, the developers of Dishonored. So they make good games. Arcane make good games. So I'm interested in that. Interested in seeing where it goes. Yeah.
Like, overall, it was the best of E3, but
by far.
it was,
by far.
but it wasn't the best we've seen ever, and I wouldn't even rate it up there in the best announcements before. So
I think next year we'll see Xbox in their prime. I think that's when they'll start announcing all their big projects with Bethesda and such.
Yeah,
like their new titles.
I don't know. I hope so. But
that'll be a year in development. But
Starfield won't even be out by next E3. Starfield is... I reckon the highlight of next E3 for Xbox is going to be Starfield gameplay.
No, I think they had to announce Starfield this time around. Or they had to show something on it, because other than that, they had no groundbreaking
100% they did. But
that was their Last of Us. That's their Fallout replacement.
But that's not out till November next year. So I think next year Bethesda's main thing will be Starfield gameplay. I will put money down that they will not give Elder Scrolls a release date next year. It's too far out. The Elder Scrolls is still 2 years away. Easy. 3 years away.
I'd say 2. I don't know about 3. I can see
2.5. November 2 years. So November 2023. Possibly. Yeah. More likely March or April of 2024.
I kind of agree
time
with
goes quick.
That I think next year we're going to see, maybe they're not going to be the Elder Scrolls, but I think we're going to get a slew of games coming from, because they got id Software. I
was going to go to that. I think a new Doom next year is quite likely.
Yeah, I think we'll get a good few announcements of like, hey, here's all of our exclusives. Maybe we won't get an Elder Scrolls 6 announcement, but we definitely will get 2, if not 5 exclusives to Xbox that are going to be AAA.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%.
Kind of Ghost of Tsushima Xbox version type caliber, like that level of exclusivity.
Yeah, I've two kind of predictions on that. I think we will get an Elder Scrolls trailer, like CG trailer next year, and it will probably reveal where it's taking place. If you've been digging through the tin hat people this week, they have an idea of where it is because of it scraping on the side of the hull. Yeah. But it's wrong, by the way. It doesn't look a bit like it. But I think we get a CG trailer for Elder Scrolls, and I don't think we get a release date. But I think what we will quite likely get from Bethesda next year is the new Doom. A new Doom, maybe? Or what other...
I think it's stuff that we're not even thinking about.
Yeah. But you know what I think is quite likely?
Behind closed doors.
Yeah. What I think
is
quite likely.
The acquisition of Bethesda and stuff. They know everyone wants the Elder Scrolls. They know everyone's expecting Doom. Mm-hmm. But I think they're going to come out with their 3 or 4 standalone titles.
See, I think that's what Redfall is. Like, that's what Redfall is, which is the vampire game from Arcane. But what I think is not quite likely but possible is that Xbox acquires someone else in the next 12 months. And they announce a Ghost of Tsushima size game in terms of an exclusive for them. I think it's quite likely that, because Bethesda, we know what games Bethesda make, and Bethesda games take a long time to make because of what they are. But I think it's quite possible that we get another acquisition. Could be quite a smaller studio that work on something in it, the size of Insomniac, because I think that's what Xbox are missing, is an Insomniac Games, that kind of studio that makes these highly polished but not crazy long adventure games. They're like 15 to 20 hour action adventure games, or a Ghost of Tsushima, something like that. I think that's what Xbox needs in its exclusive catalog.
But for all we know, like
could be working on. They could be working on it already.
But like the way, Bethesda take 26 years to bring out a fucking trailer for something, I think with that acquisition, for all we know, their whole development chain has changed.
Oh, 100%.
Drastically.
I think that's what Redfall is.
Like, with that extra kind of influence of money, they will be able to churn out not just like a fucking Ubisoft and here's just the same game fleshed over constantly or reskinned constantly. I think they're gonna not step away from that. They'll still have their big titles like your Elder Scrolls and Fallout and stuff like that do take that time, but they could fill that gap with your big Ghost of Tsushima like titles.
Rage Tree.
What I wanted to see,
we don't know. That's the big thing.
I want a Soulsborne game from id Software. That's what I want.
Interesting.
They're known for making difficult games. I want to see them have a shot at the Soulsborne game.
I think Xbox have positioned
heavy
themselves with heavy metal. I think Xbox have positioned themselves quite well with a hardcore gaming audience, as well as offering Game Pass and all that. Is that they've positioned themselves as the RPG platform. They've got Fable, they've got the Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Starfield, because that's what Bethesda give them. And well, I know Fable's not made by Bethesda, but they've really positioned themselves as the place to play your RPGs on console, whereas PlayStation's more that action adventure Hollywood game, as Kojima would call it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like I think people go through phases with what they want. Like
100%.
In terms of sometimes I want an RPG, sometimes I just want a linear campaign that's action adventure. And I think putting all your eggs in one kind of style of game, I don't really like, because then it kind of, you're always associating that company with this, like, and which is great if you're in that kind of demographic that really wants to play that all the time. But
and I think
RPGs are so fucking big that like I think only have a limited amount of time. Action adventure is your way to go.
I think that's something PlayStation have done very well, in that they've got a broad, like, if you look at their different exclusives, there's something for everybody. One of those exclusive is for everyone, and I think that's what Xbox will look at doing, is bringing this. All right, we have our RPG, we've got our first-person shooter in Doom, we've got whatever else in this. We need that action adventure, that superhero feeling kind of game that comes from somewhere, and that's maybe where they look at. Yeah, overall, I still thought it was a fantastic showcase. I really did.
My favorite game, though, came from Square Enix.
Go on, let's move on to Square Enix, because that is next on my list. And if you say Guardians of the Galaxy, we're leaving this stream. Sorry, go on.
Only fucking game that was worthy of an announcement.
Go on.
That was savage.
I don't know.
That now. Let Dylan go on. Say what you liked about Guardians of the Galaxy.
I loved the cinematic trailer. I wasn't pushed on the gameplay in terms of, I think it's very unpolished. Yeah. It looked very boxy and janky, and
it looked weird.
From playing the Avengers, it didn't even look on that level. So I think that was very early footage that they just had to kind of get out. And especially when you see what they're actually doing, it seems very like in between, like there's no real kind of goal in the level or in whatever they showed for the 10 minutes. It was just like a get from A to B. But I was just happy that they showed something like that. To me, that was a groundbreaking announcement, and it was funny that they kind of tried to reiterate all over fucking social media that it was a single story campaign. It's not supposed
Single
to be
player game. It's one player.
Yeah. Whereas it's
I
like,
think
is that coming off the Avengers? Like, kind of the way that went down.
Yeah.
And to me, it's the right direction for it, because like I'm playing Avengers for the campaign, so I'll play Guardians for the campaign, and it just has that.
You're Star-Lord. You play as Star-Lord, and you give instructions to your other teammates. It reminded me of Final Fantasy VII's remake-ish.
I thought it looked great.
It looked to me like an unpolished version of the Final Fantasy VII remake combat system, if that makes sense. It's I want Gamora to do this for me, and she goes and does it. I want Drax to do this, and then I can do this. And it's similar to Final Fantasies, where it's like Aerith's gonna heal the team while Tifa is doing high DPS on that, or Barrett's putting long range fire in. And it reminded me quite of Final Fantasies in a way, but it looked a bit, I don't want to say last gen, because I don't think that's fair, but it
just looked very early. Very early.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I was interested in what they were doing, but it was cautiously interested. It looked a bit...
Conceptually, I'm all in. Like, to tell a story like that in that universe, it's like, this is what we wanted when fucking
Which
DC universe came out. But like, the Marvel universe.
I know,
but like,
this is what, like...
This is what I wanted loads of when MCU was in its prime, like, of releasing. This was when like DC Universe came out, and it was like your imagination played more into how the game played rather than how the game actually played. And yeah, I think that's why I'm liking Avengers so much, because you're in that universe. It's action adventure. I love it.
Yeah, like, I really liked the concept of the Guardians game. I liked the jokes. It was all like, oh, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek stuff. I like this. It reminded me of the movie, even though they looked different. I don't care about how they look, by the way, because there's going to be a ton of skins in the game. They're all earnable in-game. You don't have to pay any real money. GG Square, you won. You did well this time. But concept will only get it so far. I think the gameplay looked... I'm not going to say weak, because I don't think that's, again, fair. But it looked unpolished. And hopefully that's just because it's early. Saying that, it is out in October. So how early could it be?
But that's the thing. That footage could have been 6 months ago, for all we know.
Hopefully it was.
Because from what they showed gameplay-wise, in terms of how you're, like, I know it's a third person or whatever, but in terms of movement and stuff like that, I think that's all very positive. It not that it was kind of hack and slashy when you were kind of shooting as Star-Lord and there was groups of ads or whatever, but it kind of seemed a step above that. I like hack and slash, so to me that wasn't even a question. But when you're looking at it from that perspective, all it needs really is that polish, and hopefully.
I think if you take the Guardians of the Galaxy out of that, I wouldn't touch it with a fucking 10-meter pole.
Which is where Avatar stands right now.
I'm quite interested. I'll get onto that in a minute. I'll get onto that when we move on to the Ubisoft show. But I think just to finish up on Guardians, like, I don't know. I was underwhelmed by it personally, because I think it looks a bit underbaked. We'll see how it's received on launch. I would be more than happy for that to be good, and for my reservations to be wrong, because I love Guardians. I love the humor. I love it all. I love everything Marvel. It's all fantastic. Like, the gameplay just looked a bit weak to me. That could just be me.
I think in terms of reviews,
I want it to be good. Yeah. I want it to be good, but
in terms of reviews, I'm just gonna get it day one, like, because Avengers steered me away from it for how many months? 4 or 5 months that's been now.
Oh, it's way longer.
It's like
nearly a year.
Is it that long? Jesus Christ! It was October 2020, was it?
Yeah, I think so. Nearly a year, yeah.
But that deterred me from even trying it, because I just saw pure negative, and I'm really enjoying it. I know I haven't stopped talking about it now, but just in terms of make a final judgment yourself on these things.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
For example,
if you enjoy it, fuck anyone who tells you otherwise.
yeah, like watching you play Final Fantasy 7 months ago when you were streaming it, I was just like I couldn't get my head around movement and how the fights went and stuff like that. And I was like, I wouldn't even think about looking at it. But the fact that I eventually played it, I can see that now. So I think a
Guardians
lot
is
of
going to
games
work
kind of
quite
have
similar
that.
to that
Yeah.
in terms of directing people to do different things.
But yeah, day one, I'm gonna have pre-ordered the shit out of that. Gonna pre-order on PS5 because I'm gonna be optimistic that I'm gonna get a PS5 by October. Because I'll be back in work by then. If I can't get it here, I'm getting the one.
Work your magic. Stephen, work your magic.
I'll get all my bots set up now. Don't worry.
Did you have to say on Guardian, Stephen? I know you tried to come in a couple of times there.
Yeah, like I was interested at the prospect of it. Underwhelmed by the gameplay, but I'm gonna watch it because it's something I would love to play it. I really wanted to do well, and I would love more those kind of one-shot games in the Marvel universe that are just single player. So I really wanted to do well. I just don't
if
know
it does,
if it will.
Exactly like you said, that could open the door for the standalone games on. Like before James Gunn even looked at Guardians, I remember when that got announced, none of us
Who were they?
knew what it was. It was like apprehension fucking times 100. But they could do that in the gaming universe then. They could introduce us to so many characters.
100%. Gaming is
Just having that
capable of doing it
standalone.
now.
Yeah. So I hope it does well.
So within that Square Enix conference, like there was a couple of stuff for like Life is Strange. Not interested in that. I don't think any of us really are.
That's coming out on the Switch, isn't it?
Possibly.
Yeah,
maybe.
That was the only thing that was interested on me. I could see myself playing on the Switch, but it's very telltale-y. If you like it, you like it. If you're not,
exactly, it's one of those. Final Fantasy classic games got remasters announced for Final Fantasy 1 through 6. They're 2D remasters, just makes them look shinier in comparison to what they looked 20, 30 years ago. Black Panther expansion for Avengers, mobile games, who cares? But then they finished off on, well, I don't know if it had been leaked or it had been teased. I can't remember, but it was Stranger of Paradise, which was Final Fantasy Origin. The demo was out on PS5. It's coming to all platforms next year. I haven't played the demo yet. I have it downloaded, but I haven't given it a shot. But yeah, I've heard mixed things about that. It's been very mixed.
Now, in the Final Fantasy universe, is this like a standalone, a new concept, or is this like a continuation?
Well,
it's somewhere in the middle of it all.
So the gameplay is.
Oh, it's not good for the franchise as a whole, is it not?
Well, it's a different direction.
They're trying to do something new.
Okay.
Yeah, they're trying to do something new, but I think where they've really fucked up with the narrative is that they're basically retelling the first Final Fantasy game, but with different characters and in a different. So they're basically going, here's a new Final Fantasy concept, but we're essentially remaking Final Fantasy 1. And it's like, why? Why couldn't you just do something?
It's more so like a
bold?
Legends series rather than a.
Yes.
What's that word? I'm trying to think of.
Yeah. It is to Final Fantasy what Legends of Arceus is to Legends of Arceus is to Pokemon series. In a way.
There you go. Canon, that's the word I was thinking of. Canon. Is it like a kind of beside it, like a? I'm thinking of Star Wars, the way they have the Legends series, they have things
yes
that happen.
And no. Yeah, yes and no.
Yeah,
it's just
strange.
Has it been talked on? Like, have they announced? Like, no.
This was the announcement of it. Yeah.
No, like in terms of where it places in the whole.
No, not like that. No, it's all pure chaos. Chaos everywhere.
Chaos.
Yeah, all chaos.
Because with Final Fantasy, like the characters that are in Final Fantasy 1 are different to the ones that are in 2 or 3 or 5 or 7. They're all standalone games, whereas this one it's a Soulsborne kind of. They're kind of branching out into that kind of From Software, Dark Souls combat kind of stuff. In Final Fantasy universe, it's a bit weird.
It's not good though, in terms of.
I haven't played it. It should be. I haven't given it a shot though. I have to give it a shot and play it.
I think the problem, the massive problem people have instantly with it is It looks like a PlayStation 3 game. The dialogue is so poor that Chaos is mentioned about 37 times.
Yeah.
Even by Chaos himself, he mentions himself as Chaos.
In the third person.
He speaks of himself from the third person, yeah.
Like, literally, they go, oh, this is Garland. He goes, no, I am Chaos. You're like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
And then he jumps, he does the superhero landing. And actually, if you go watch the superhero, it's so weak. It's like he tries to protect his knees. You're like, oh, this is so bad.
I'll give you my impressions of that next week when I've played it a bit.
Yeah, I'm going to play it. It looks, I know it's made by Team Ninja, the guys who make Neo, but it looks like a Devil May Cry copy.
It looks very it's like a Horcrux of Devil May Cry.
Just slap a Final Fantasy skin on it.
Yeah. It's like Devil May Cry made a bunch of Horcruxes, and this is one of their Horcruxes.
Fair enough, yeah.
Like, I'm interested, but
I'm going to play the demo and reserve my judgment till then.
Can I say one thing, though?
Weak.
The soundtrack for it on my PlayStation home screen from the demo is great, though. It's very very loud, but it's great.
Yeah, because I was downloading it and I had the remake beside it, and I went over to it, and then it was just like, it was like 1 or 2 in the morning. I was not ready for it.
Right. I'll come back to Nintendo's in a bit. So I don't know if any of you guys watched Geeked Weeked, which was Netflix's stuff. There wasn't a whole lot really announced. They showed off the League of Legends Arcane, which is an anime by Riot. I personally have no interest in it. They showed off that Lance Reddick is in the new Resident Evil series.
Oh yeah.
Lance Reddick is great. All hail.
He's one of the main characters in it, isn't he?
Yeah, he's one of the main characters.
He's like a big
Wesker. He's playing Wesker. Whoever Wesker is.
Is he?
That's all I saw.
Yes.
I didn't think he's playing Whisker.
He's playing Wesker. If he's not, they teased it very wrong. Because it was like, he's talking like, I am Wesker, I'm coming. But yeah, I don't really have a lot there.
Castlevania, they showed more of.
They showed off
that's a great show for if you're into that kind of.
Yeah.
They did.
The Witcher got a bit of a snippet.
Yeah, they gave glimpses of that. I know people kind of probably slowed that down and broke it down frame by frame. But that's the one thing that they did announce was WitcherCon is on July 9th, which is a cross between CD Projekt Red and Netflix. So I'm assuming Witcher Season 2 gets a release date at that. Hopefully they announce something for Cyberpunk at that, even though it's called WitcherCon. It'd be nice to get.
That's
even just the next gen update. I don't know. They did announce very quietly. It was kind of, oh, by the way, this is happening. That I think it was like, it was during one of the showcases it kind of broke on Twitter that Cyberpunk is coming back to PS4 next week. To the store, it just appeared on the store, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's happening. Go buy our game." So, I hope the next gen version gets a release date soon, because that means that they might work on new content for the rest of us who've finished the game. All 4 of us who actually finished that game.
We have a 3090.
Yeah. So I'm hoping for new content to even just to be announced, even just saying this is our first DLC coming in January 2022. This is what it's going to be, just to have something to look forward to. Because at least with Final Fantasy VII remake, I know Part 2 is coming at some stage, and I was like, yeah, I can wait for that. It's coming. It's with Cyberpunk. It's just
you don't know
nothing at the moment. Just nothing. So
I would like if they did confirm that they were working on another Witcher. Don't even have to show anything, but the fact that they made a Witcher con.
Apparently there's some sort of Witcher multiplayer coming, though. I don't know what that will entail. It might literally just be Gwent multiplayer. But apparently there is some sort of Witcher multiplayer. Because they did a whole... it was just after their earnings call, I think. They broke down, this is what we're doing with our 2 franchises. Half the team's working on that, half the team's working on that. And this is what, so they were like, previous gen versions, PC versions, next gen versions, and then it was like multiplayer, whatever that is or it was either multiplayer or online. So there is something in the works for Witcher there. So I think Witcher.
Just even if they pull a
4
God of
is
War, just show the logo or something, you know.
Like I think Witcher
cool.
4 is probably further.
Couple of
out.
years.
It's probably further out than Elder Scrolls 6. To be fair, I think they'll work on Cyberpunk for the next couple of years at least. Get it fixed, get it running on all platforms. Do whatever DLC they're planning for it, and then Witcher 4 will probably get an announcement that come out 8 years later.
Unpopular opinion, but I think they should hightail the series as much as possible.
The
in
TV
terms
series?
of yeah. So kind of change their direction and not bring it out as an RPG. Go more action adventure, just to condense it a bit, to kind of tie it in with the pace that it's granted with the TV show. Possibly.
You go to the Witcher Reddit and put that on the Witcher Reddit, and you tell me what kind of reaction you get.
But just in terms, I know you have your diehards and shit like that who, if you put a fucking tree in the wrong position, they'll give out. But just in terms of this franchise is doing really good right now in one form of media. Let's fucking throw all the media at them at once and pull a Star Wars and fucking oversaturate the fucking industry for a while.
Yeah. One thing I hope they do, and I'll come back to it because it's a wider topic that I actually want to chat about. I hope they don't do a full 3 to 4 year development cycle, release cycle for the next Witcher game. I hope it's a case of, here's Witcher 4, and it's out next year.
Yeah.
Or it's out in 14 months or 15 months, or at E3 next year. They say, Witcher 4 coming out next holiday, as in a year and a half later. Because I think that this whole 3 to 4 plus a year development cycle it's starting to burn people out.
It's changed, like in terms of the way every game is a fucking live service game now. Yeah. It's like the industry has changed. These games, like the way you said, Bethesda, that take fucking 4 or 5 years per title to even get announced, let alone brought out. I think those days are numbered.
I think
it'll be great to have them as a continuation, but in terms of if this is all you're literally waiting for as your big fucking release, I think that's gone. Like everything's multiplayer now. Everything's online. Everything's a live service. It's trying to keep up with the competition. There's no like this is your Christmas window.
Perfect example of that is Halo's multiplayer going free to play. It's keeping up with the rest of the industry.
Yeah.
And it's like obviously you'd think that this has been spoken about in the background and they understand and stuff like that. And even what players want, like we all want to sit down and play a single player game, but nobody's done that since 2014, since Destiny came out. But I think the single player games that are 60 to 100 hours long, like The Witcher, they're, I don't want to say dying, but they're becoming a very niche audience compared to mainstream nowadays.
There is less of a demand for it. People want to consume it, and they want to consume it now.
Yeah.
Same with Netflix releasing fucking a whole season of something in one day.
Netflix is the cause of it.
Weekly.
Fuck you, Netflix. Not really. Like moving up not quickly. Then there was they announced the Far Cry Blood Dragon anime Captain Laserhawk. It was fucking weird. So, but yeah, it was just weird. Koch Media had a showcase just after that. I personally turned it off because it was boring the crap out of me. It was the classic case of they just talked too much. It was like, stop talking and show me stuff. So I didn't watch it. After that, we had the Ubisoft show. There was a couple of things in here that caught my attention, I'll be honest. The first game...
Just Dance 22, wasn't it?
What's it? Just Dance, yeah.
Just Dance, yeah.
You've seen the living room. There's plenty of room. Can I say something about Just Dance 2022, though? Is that Todrick Hall is life. I love Todrick Hall, who was talking about Just Dance. He's in RuPaul. He's great.
Wow.
Okay.
He's a dancer, choreographer, all that nonsense. But he's great. Okay. He's great. Breath of fresh air with his pink hair. Anyway, they started off the show with Rainbow Six Extraction, and this caught my attention.
I'm interested.
Yeah, like
For a franchise that I didn't think I would ever
like-
want to look at twice.
Yeah.
Campaign does a lot for me.
Yeah, like Rainbow Six Siege has gone from strength to strength over the last however long it's been out, 6 years or some nonsense. 6 years of Siege, yeah. It's one of those games that I wish I'd got into but never did. But the gunplay is great in that game, and if that gunplay carries over into a co-op PvE game, I'm all for it. As you'd expect, they showed off a fantastic CG trailer because that's what Ubisoft do. But it's basically Division versus Aliens in a weird way. It's Tom Clancy
Scavengers.
versus Scavengers, but like there's an alien parasite and blah blah blah. But it's 1 to 3 player co-op with the Rainbow Six operators. So it's with the Rainbow Six Siege operators. So you have your abilities, you have unlockable tech abilities. I think they said it was 3 containment zones. I think it was. So like you go into the containment zone, you have a mission. It's rescuing whatever, but yeah, it looks quite good. Like the enemy variety looked good. I think I don't know what they were called, Arcanes or something, but I think the enemies were very unique. But yeah, no, I like the look of it.
Play it as a one and done. I think it'd be great.
That's what it did look like. It looked like Ubisoft's answer to Outriders.
Yeah.
But Rainbow Six Siege is already a very successful game with very successful gunplay and mechanics. So
that's incorporated.
It's it's incorporated. I think it's very smart. I actually think Destiny could take a leaf from this, in that you have your have your PvP, your PvE game, which is very successful, make your PvP game, which has been lacking, or vice versa. That if you separate the two of them, like, it could work very well. But I was interested in this.
Yeah, same. Like, I was excited for another fucking war game, Battlefield 2042, until I heard there was no campaign. And then it just sapped my excitement, because the campaign for was it the last one? That was amazing. We're told different shorts in history from different perspectives. That was phenomenal, and it looked.
Was that the last one or the one before that? I can't remember.
It was Battlefield 1, I think.
Battlefield 1, yeah.
But like that, I thought it was great. Play the campaign, jumped into multiplayer for a bit. Not a big fan of that style of multiplayer. I enjoy it for a while if you're playing it with people. I was playing it with one of the guys from work, and it was great. But solo, not my experience. Not my liked experience. So the fact that this has no campaign, it just doesn't hold my interest. So the fact that Rainbow Siege Extraction or Rainbow Six Extraction does,
it's a mouthful.
It's gone the opposite.
Yeah, no, I'd be definitely in for playing through this as a trio.
The only thing is, if it is like, this is their first kind of campaign, is it going to be like the way Battlefront 2, their campaign was only around 8 hours or so?
Yeah,
because it might be primarily multiplayer. Yeah. So that wouldn't be worth it.
It might be very basic, because they showed off that it's called Extraction. So, and what they showed off was you going to save one of the operators to then play as that operator. So if that's all the game is, where you just go rescue each of the different operators, it might be a bit samey, but it has my attention. It has my attention. I don't think it got a release date or a release window. I didn't write it down if it did, but you know, it looked interesting.
September 16th.
Oh yeah,
no, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. September 16th, all platforms. So yeah, I'm
Nintendo
interested
Switch.
in that.
Let's go.
Apart from that,
Switch Pro.
They talked about Riders Republic, which, if I was 10 years old, that would have blown my mind, because it's all extreme sports, but I'm nearly 30, so I'm not as interested now. Aside from anything else, though, that visually looks spectacular.
Didn't really take notice, to be honest.
No, it looks lovely, but I won't be playing.
When I'm not interested, I just look away.
I just thought it looked great. They talked about Valhalla, and Stephen, I think your one of your predictions came true here, that they're gonna continue to expand on Valhalla for another year. I think
I'm so surprised.
I think you said no. I think you said that during
believe it.
our prediction show that there'll be more expansions for that. That's coming in the summer. I think it's the
That's a first for Assassin's Creed, isn't it? They've never continued on a game past its fucking.
No.
November.
They've done little things. They've done little things, but not on this scale. And it's gotta be supported into next year with more expansions, and I think they might have teased Norse gods God of War. Yeah.
That's the thing when you're in that kind of Viking-esque, they all kind of follow the same
it's Vikings
mythology.
had a cool thing right now.
Yeah. So it's like one is doing it one way and then another one's doing it the other way, even though it's the same thing. It's just their
You know what's coming back around next,
iteration of
don't you? Vampires are coming back.
Vampires are
Twilight the game.
Oh no! Oh my god!
We never
Press
got
F
that.
to sparkle.
You can change the sparkle. Only $4.99.
Developed by Ubisoft.
Developed by Ubisoft.
We didn't get any Phoenix Rising stuff actually.
No, we didn't.
Ubisoft's one, which I was a bit surprised.
I did buy that yesterday at long last though, because it was
nice.
It was the last day of the sale, and it was payday today.
Ah, shit.
Yeah, so
you already have it, Stephen.
I know, but I was gonna buy it on PC.
But yeah, they announced the new Mario game, Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Speaking of Sparks,
my little brother loves that.
Yeah, no interest in it, but there's obviously an audience for it. It was basically Mario meets Guardians of the Galaxy. That's
it was Thor the Guardians. Yeah,
Thor the Guardians, and then they signed off the show with the reveal of Avatar. It's in the new Snowdrop engine. I don't know how you guys felt about this game. 10
years ago, maybe, when the movie came out.
Do you know what? That's actually what I think. The note I actually wrote about that was, I'm glad we didn't get it 10 years ago, because I don't think gaming was capable of having that experience 10 years ago. Whereas now consoles and PC have, I wouldn't even say caught up with cinema. They've surpassed what cinema can do now with gaming.
It could have went Lord of the Rings route though.
I'm pretty sure there was an Avatar game. All those there was no. I'm pretty sure there was a PS3 Avatar game. I don't know if it was good, bad, or indifferent.
I think it was PS2.
But I think I know Avatar 2 is due to come out at some stage in the next millennia. But I don't know. I was somewhat interested in this because I think this could be done really, really well. And this is someone, by the way, I didn't like the Avatar movie. It did nothing for me. Okay, it looked great. The CGI was fantastic. IMAX was wonderful. But the actual movie itself, I can take it or leave it.
It was awful.
I can take it or leave it.
I can't remember because it was fucking 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
It was your summer blockbuster with fancy effects and look great on an IMAX screen. But I don't know. I think this could, if this is done well, it could be done really well. They did show off a great CGI trailer, which Ubisoft are the best in the business at doing that. And they didn't show any gameplay, which is disappointing. But I don't know. I could be cautiously optimistic about this game.
I think if it's
on Game Pass,
if it's on Game Pass, okay, no problem. But if it's similar in quality to what Forbidden West is lining itself up to be,
I think it's competing with that.
Really though?
That's I reckon Ubisoft make these big AAA games. That's what Ubisoft do. And if they make an Assassin's Creed scope game in the Avatar universe, it is setting itself up to take on Horizon next year for Game of the Year. If done well, it could be an absolute train wreck. Don't get me wrong.
I think
I'm on board with train wreck.
Yeah, it's leaning more towards train wreck.
Yeah.
But if they do this well, like it could knock it out of the park.
I think
completely.
you're gonna play Forbidden West and then play this fucking Mists of Pandaria shy. And
Frontiers of
get
Pandora.
fucking... Or that's a... Sorry, WoW.
Mist.
It's a WoW expansion. And the comparison is just gonna be ridiculous. But to quote
I
Kev,
think it will
prove me
be.
wrong.
I think it will be compared a lot to Horizon Forbidden West. That's what it's gonna be compared to, because I know Aloy is not blue that we know of. So, but I think the map setup, the lush jungle, it's gonna be quite similar in terms of the map to Horizon. So it's undoubtedly gonna be compared to that. But I don't know. I don't know.
It could come out on top visually if because Ubisoft released on PC. Forbidden West won't be. So
another
you put ray
thing,
tracing and DLSS into that.
I also don't think this will be released for last gen.
No.
And Forbidden West is getting released for last gen, which it will possibly hold it back. Look, I'm not the biggest Avatar fan, but this game, it caught my attention. That it could be something. It could be something special, or it could be a train wreck, or somewhere smack bang in the middle. I mean,
I think this is another movie game. That's all it is. It's just, but that's just my opinion.
But your opinions aren't facts, Dill.
Let's
get over it.
It's one of those that I do actually. I completely understand both of your reservations, but I hope you're wrong, because then it means we get more good games to play.
Yep.
It's the same with Guardians of the Galaxy. I hope my reservations are wrong, and I hope that my cautious optimism for this game is right, because it means more good games. That's all we really want. So apart from that, there's no point talking about a lot like the Capcom stuff, Bandai Namco. They should have just been one show for an hour where you go to Bandai Namco and you go to Capcom. They should have been that. So we won't talk about that. And we will briefly talk about Nintendo, even though I don't really think there's much of a point. They didn't announce the Switch Pro, which was disappointing to say the
very
least.
missed opportunity.
I know they said that they weren't going to. It was going to be focusing on software. They announced more than I expected them to announce, but I was still disappointed. Because,
like, as we were saying at the start of this, though, if you're paying a 6-figure sum to get into this and you're not showing your Switch Pro, does it fucking exist? Like, if you're showing Worms Rumble and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 for a couple hundred grand, are you fucking right in the head?
Yeah. It doesn't quantify having a fucking showcase in itself.
And you know, I actually was thinking about when I was thinking about making a case in defense of this, because I knew we'd be slating it. I was going to say, maybe it was shorter because of this. It wasn't shorter. It was the same length.
No, it wasn't.
Like, Nintendo always go for 40 to 45 minute showcases at E3. It was, and I was like, how can I mount a defense of this? I was like, oh, maybe I'll say it was shorter because they're under... No, it wasn't. It was the same length as always. They showed off no Pokemon, which was weird. I was expecting some sort of gameplay for something, which was weird that they didn't show anything. And this
not even in Pearl, even.
Yeah, the fact that they didn't show it is, to me, they don't fucking have shit to show past what they already showed a couple months ago.
100%.
And that's worrying. The fact that it's 3 months away.
Yeah. And like, you could be, I'm going to say optimistic, but it's more naive. You could be naive and think, oh, maybe they're saving it for their own direct later in this. I don't think so. I really don't think
even if they are. Like, it goes back to my point. Why spend that much money to hold your big hitters? Like, are you going to... Like, if you could pay into the Premier League and then not put out your A-Field team, are you... I'm making sports comments. I have no idea what's going on. The one sports match I watched, Christian Eriksen has a heart attack.
It's like Spurs joining the European Super League. Why? Why are you paying into this? No, it's a bad comparison anyway. But I think the one thing they did show off that got a lot of people excited was Metroid Dread.
The game that was cancelled 16 years ago.
Yeah, but they showed that off, and that's out in October, and then they ended the show with a teaser for Breath of the Wild 2, which is aiming for 2022, which means it's out in 2023. But and that brings me to my point. Metroid Dread, which by the way has fantastic box art. I'm not interested in that game at all, but the box is lovely. That got announced this week, and it's out in less than 4 months. Breath of the Wild 2 was announced 2 years ago, and it possibly isn't out for another 2 years.
Yeah,
this goes back.
Hoping for 2022.
Yeah, we're
That's
hoping.
Very negative.
Yeah, it is. Aiming for 2022 means it's out in 2023. That's
the fact that they said that more than once.
Aiming,
just
yeah.
reiterate.
They emphasized aiming, and it goes back to the whole development cycle of. I don't feel it benefits anybody to announce a game before it's. I wouldn't even say nearly ready, but look at. I think Elden Ring is even Elden Ring was announced 2 years ago. If that releases, it will be on its release date. And From Software are usually nailed on for release dates. When they announce something, it comes out on that release date. And Elden Ring will be. It was announced 2 years ago. It got a gameplay / CG trailer at this E3, and it's out in January. So that'll be 2.5 years from announcement to release. And people are tired from that alone. Look at Zelda. Is it going to be 4 years from announcement to release for Breath of the Wild 2? That's crazy. Like, people are getting tired from that, and I don't think it benefits gamers, developers, publishers, media, anybody. And I think the people it affects most are the developers, because the game gets unreasonably hyped up above any sort of reasonable expectations. I have an itchy back there, and it just puts pressure on developers to push out a game before it's ready. Whereas if you look at Metroid Dread, perfect example, they announced this game. I know it's been a long time since the last Metroid, but they announced this game now, and then they showed off gameplay of it, extended gameplay, and people went, "This is everything I wanted. I've been waiting so long for this game. It's coming out in 4 months." Like, the developers, there's no pressure on the developers to say, "Shit, we have to hit this launch window or we're fucked, or we lose money, or XYZ happens." And I just think the gaming industry of announcing to releasing needs to look at itself and go, "This does not benefit anybody. Let's announce it within a year, and then it's out."
Like, I completely agree with everything you've just said.
I forget what I just said.
But I got a meme on you slightly, because your example of Metroid Dread is the worst one, considering it was announced back in 1999, cancelled in 2001, and now is coming out, 20 years later.
Yeah, but it was cancelled. It wasn't expected. It was expected that to be a new Metroid at some point. Or was it? Was it just one guy in his basement for the last 16 years programming? Right.
It's a 2D game,
I'll change that then. Guardians of the Galaxy was announced at E3, and it's out in 3 months' time.
No, you're right though. Like, to go back to the crux of your point, that, like, Elden Ring is probably the perfect example of
2 years,
announcing it way too soon.
But you know what? I actually don't think Elden Ring
2 years
was.
until you get gameplay. But it's 2 years.
But that's
between
normal,
announcements.
and that's the problem. That's the normal development of something. It gets announced, and
think
then
of all the hype with that game.
Yeah.
Like,
but that
not every game
it's
gets
kind
that
of
level of hype.
contradicting everything else. Like, they all have to be categorized the same. Your Cyberpunks, your Elden Rings, your Breath of the Wild, fucking Elder Scrolls, all them have to be in the same basket of, this isn't just a development like an Assassin's Creed game that we can get out in a year's time, or if fucking sports.
I actually think Assassin's Creed is perfectly announced each year. Apart from the fact it's coming already. They announce it around March or April. They say, "Oh, we've a new Assassin's Creed coming. Here's the setting." And then at E3 they say, "Here's the trailer." And then it's out in November. So you have that maybe 9 months. I know Assassin's Creed is probably a bad example, because there's a new one coming out. But they announce it, they show it off, and then it's out in 6 months' time. And that's been worked on for 2 or 3 years. But
But
my
they
point
need
on
the
Elden Ring,
transparency as well,
Yeah.
and like they're getting given investment for a certain amount of time to work on the project. So them publicly announcing that we have this project finished for 2 years time, 3 years max, it's kind of accountability as well. And to me, it's a better return for investors because, like you said, FromSoft, if they are notorious for releasing on time, all the time, like that's part of their fucking name. Then
I think you touched on a word there. Investors is probably half the reason why it happens the way it
Yeah.
happens, because it
and
builds,
it's to build up that
it
hype
puts the
as
stock
well.
price. The stock price goes that way, and then if it's
And I think that's what
successful,
people
it
have
keeps
to
going.
start thinking about as well. It's like it's not. It's like the way you said to today, Kev. It's like these companies aren't doing these partnerships for our betterment, for the gamers, for the
own.
players. They're doing it because it's
businesses.
making them money. Like, and that's, I think people are so detached from that it's like you tell anyone that like you're saying at the start, it's been a tough 16 to 18 months for the development cycle of these companies, but investors don't care. They're losing money. They want their titles churned out. They want
And
their
that goes back to this.
return.
It goes back to this game. The reason that came out when it came out was if we don't meet this release window, our investors are raising eyebrows and we lose money.
Because
And like what's happened is we hit our release window, it didn't land the way it should have landed, and we've lost money. A lot of money. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
I think
then the kind of accountability should go on. I don't want to say developers. I mean, like the studio as a whole. Then they shouldn't promise something in such a window, and it's not the whole like we need it done in 2 years. Well, we can't do that. It's like we'll get it done, and then no questions asked. It can't go like that.
I think accountability doesn't happen because the people who are in charge of those decisions just end up leaving the company, and that's kind of the accountability is they lose their job, but they don't really get held accountable because they just kind of drift off silently. But I think I mentioned, just to come back and combat Stephen about Elden Ring, I mentioned Elden Ring because it getting announced 2 years ago and being released in January next year if it hits the window, that's the norm. Like, Elden Ring does not have a long development to release cycle. Sorry, it probably has a very long development to release. I mean, announcement to release cycle. 2 years is not out of the norm for a game to be announced.
That'll be 3.
It'll be 2.5 years.
Comes out.
That'll be 2.5 years. Be June to January. So 2.5
that's
years.
long.
Do you
That's-
agree that?
But
Yeah,
but
do you agree
no,
that
it
that's
is.
a good thing?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I don't.
you-
That's what I'm
it's a
getting
norm,
to.
yeah.
That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
That is not out of the norm for a game to be announced like that, and that is a long time to be waiting for something to be announced, to see gameplay to be released.
Definitely.
But that's normal, and I don't think that's a good thing. I really don't think it's a good thing. Because it builds up unmeetable hype for a game to release. But that's the pressure of it. It's the same.
I think that's on us,
Grand Theft
though, as
Auto
well.
6. Like, Grand Theft Auto 6 hasn't even been announced yet. And there's already unreasonable expectations on that game. It must be horrendous to work at some of these companies.
But I don't think that's unreasonable. I think that's positive in terms
I think it's
of...
both.
Oh.
I think it's positive because it does drive up. It creates jobs. It drives up hype. Drives up the price. That's all great, but it puts a lot of pressure on people who do not earn nearly enough money for what they create.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's on the industry and the
is.
company and the studio. And you could say the same football, for example. If you're a high level team, you've got pressure on you to perform season after season at that level. The players have that extra pressure, but they bring that on themselves by being that good. And I think the same goes for CD Projekt Red with The Witcher and having the hype for Cyberpunk. It's like, it shouldn't be a bad thing that something is hyped. Like, that shouldn't add, obviously it's going to add pressure, but it shouldn't be a factor in its make or break,
I think there's healthy hype and there's unhealthy hype. Unhealthy hype was Cyberpunk because it had been such a long development cycle, that was announced 8 years before it was released, which is fucking ridiculous. But I think having hype for a few months for something is healthy, because the game is nearly finished by that stage. They show it off, they give their CG trailer, they give gameplay, and people go, "Oh, this looks great! I can't wait for that." But when they put up a splash screen of "Here's the new game," and we'll show you something in 2 years' time, like,
Yeah.
it's out in 2020. It's out on the 15th of November 2022. But boss, we haven't even started yet. Well, get working. It's not healthy. And it
But
doesn't
like you
benefit
said, 3
anyone.
months is perfect, because then you'll probably see pre-orders rolling in. But people are like, a year down the line, they're like, "Oh shit, remember that game?" Like, I not that I wasn't focused on it, but half the stuff that was announced at E3 is a late 2022 window, or hasn't even gotten a date. So I was kind of like, I'm not even gonna think about that, because it's just oversaturating the rest of the stuff.
And just coming back to the Xbox show, and it's a point you just made there of the late window. I think that's why I thought the Xbox show was quite great. Most of what they announced is out this year, or at the very start of next year. Like, I know Starfield is late next year, Stalker 2 is the middle of next year, but Back 4 Blood was October this year. The Sea of Thieves update was next week. Yakuza now on Game Pass. Battlefield's out this year. 12 Minutes is out in August. Psychonauts out in August. Xbox have an exclusive releasing every month of the year for the rest of this year. So I think that's why it was so great. It was like, while I wasn't interested in a lot of it, somebody is. And it was like, here's something new coming next month. Here's something new coming next month. I think that's why it was so great.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a good way.
I don't like the whole, here's a game in 3 years. Like,
no, I don't either.
No.
Like, Cyberpunk was a rare one for me because it was for so long. It was like, yeah, it's coming when it's coming. I can't wait for it. And I was like, oh shit, it's out next year, or it's out whenever.
Yeah.
So it builds up that hype. But I think when you think about it, 8 years is a quarter of my life. No, more than a quarter of my life. It's nearly a third of my life. It's like 3.5, 1 over 3.5 of my life. To be waiting for something that long is kind of crazy when you think about it. You're going to have a kid halfway through primary school in that time.
Jesus.
Yeah. But yeah.
I'll have a Dan.
Have a Dan. Have half a Dan. Half Dan.
Half Dan.
Half Dan. Right. So I think that's all of the showcases really talked about. I think we were all kind of in agreement that Xbox's was the best of a very bad bunch.
But so, not bad in itself. Like,
but not bad in itself.
Clear.
Yeah. It would have been interesting if PlayStation had done a showcase of their own. And it will be interesting if PlayStation do a showcase of their own at some point over the next 6 weeks, maybe next month or so. Shall we throw out maybe the top 3 games that we're each looking forward to from Summer Game Fest / E3? And I'll deal. You start with Guardians of the Galaxy. So yeah, what are your other 2? Get Rex on.
Guardians is definitely top. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I'm
really
we didn't even.
That was because it was E3.
That was Summer Game Fest. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think I'm kind of feeling the fantasy genre right now. And it was hard for the third one because Sea of Thieves is happening next week, so to me it doesn't really feel like a release because it's a DLC. Same with Diablo, like it's a remake that's coming out in September. I'm really, really looking forward to playing that. But Starfield will probably be my third.
I'm glad you said Starfield because now I can't.
Yeah, Starfield. I'm looking forward for that. I want to see it, but to me it's very reminiscent of Destiny meets Fallout.
Yeah, it's Elder Scrolls in space.
Yeah. So it will scratch that itch. Hopefully. Could go Fallout 76 route and be an absolute disaster, but
I think Starfield has to deliver for Bethesda.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, Bethesda have had some, like, their id Software games have been very successful. Arcane have done some very good things, but their main studio releases of Fallout, like they haven't done a big one, and like Skyrim was the last super successful one. Yeah, and that was 10 years ago in November. So I
Which
think,
comments on fucking the overhype that's unnecessary.
So I think Starfield needs to land well for Bethesda. Not for Microsoft, because they'll just go, we have enough money, we don't give a shit. But I think Bethesda need a win.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And they need a win without any bullshit tied onto it. They need to win back gamers' approval of them.
Yeah. They need to pull a
Because
Witcher.
they fell from grace hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
well,
Guardians,
I mean-
Tina's, and Starfield. Who'll be me?
Stephen?
Are we like not allowed to say what other people have said?
Go for it. No,
You can
it's
go
just
ahead.
your top 3.
Your
Oh,
top
no.
3?
Yeah, so obviously Elden Ring.
Actually, sorry,
top
Stephen,
one.
just before you go on. Dill, is your game a show Guardians of the Galaxy?
Game show Guardians. Yeah.
Okay, Stephen, go ahead. Your 3 you're looking forward to and your game of show.
Extreme looking forward. So obviously number 1 by far Elden Ring. I don't really have 2 more that I'm like really happy about, but Stalker got my interest.
Mm-hmm.
Starfield obviously, but I want to see more about what that is. But I think the other one that I'm kind of like, I'm keen on that would be Halo Infinite. I think I love
think-
Halo. I want it to do well. I really want there to be a good Halo game again. And with the multiplayer being free and stuff like that, like I wanted to just land well, have a good story, and just have something where you go, does anyone want to do some fun PvP type thing? Let's just throw on Halo Infinite for a couple
Kind of
of hours.
rejuvenate the franchise in a way.
Yeah, like I really wanted to land well.
I think all the stuff that's
they
come
would-
out about Halo Infinite over the few days since the Xbox presentation, there's been a lot of positive stuff coming out from that.
Yeah, so I hope it does well. So they're my 3, and then game of show for me is Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Kev?
It's so obvious.
Yeah, I'll say, like, obviously, I'm my most hype for a game right now in general is Elden Ring, because it's taken that kind of open world exploration game that a lot of us love. I'm big into them, and it's combining that with the challenge of a Sekiro or a Demon Souls, so I'm really excited to see what they do with that. The more I think about it, I'm a bit cautious that it could go very wrong, but it's From Software, and From Software have only been on an upward trajectory. Like, they've only gone from strength to strength with their games. Dark Souls obviously released, and it was met with kind of weird reception at the beginning, and then it developed that kind of cult fan base, and then, well, obviously Demon Souls came first, but the Dark Souls series got that cult kind of fan base, and then they partnered with PlayStation to release Bloodborne, which was recognized as one of the best games of the PS4 era, and then they won Game of the Year with Sekiro, so they've only been on an upward trajectory, and hopefully they don't meet the same fate as CD Projekt Red did last year, falling from our graces alongside Bethesda, and been in that kind of pool of we used to be good. You guys, you let us down. You guys just let us down. So hopefully Elden Ring meets those expectations. I can't wait for it anyway. Me and Steve were actually talking about today about what platform we're gonna get it on. So I think I'll obviously be getting it on PC unless there's a collector's edition I can't get on PC, or it's difficult to get on PC, which in that case I'll just get it on PS5 and PC. But I hope there's a collector's edition for that, because they do cool statues.
That'd be a nice statue.
Even
I'd be tempted
because...
What? It's not out yet, Kev.
Oh, his solo
Oh,
stage.
it's there. It's there.
He's
there.
behind something there, is he?
It's right there. I'm not gonna go on
What's
the
in
Dark
front
Souls
of him?
statue. Dark Souls statue. What's in front of it? There's nothing in front of it. God of
Looks
War's
like he's wearing a top.
God of War's beside it. There's a couple of Funkos behind it. After that,
Avatar.
see, I don't know if I'd say it's the one I'm looking forward to. I'm quite interested in what they're doing, and I think it could be spectacular. I'm probably gonna say the Arcane Studios game, Redfall, that co-op. It looked like it was a co-op vampire shooter. We didn't see any gameplay, so I'm cautiously optimistic, but it looked like a good time. They did release some information on what happened. It's not just vampires. It was a lab experiment that went wrong. So the vampires are COVID apparently.
I was just gonna say that's very COVID.
But yeah, I'm interested. I think that looks really cool. I think it looks kind of Borderlandsy in its setup, maybe. Of it's a to Z kind of A to B kind of game, but you can play a co-op and you upgrade characters. So I'm interested in that. My final one, I don't want to say Starfield because it's so far out. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm literally just scrolling through all my notes here to try to grab my last one that I might be interested in. Jesus, it's actually hard when you're trying to pull, when you have one more to pull and you don't know which one.
It wasn't a lot, like.
But see, this is my argument about E3 as a whole. It's like we're struggling to pick top 3 because there wasn't a top 3.
I think I'm quite interested in Extraction again.
Yeah.
Rainbow Six Extraction. I think it might just have to take a place there because there's not a lot else to really pick from.
Stalker 2.
Yeah, maybe. I thought that looked absolutely like that. I was talking to Louise about that. I was like, games are getting to a point where they're too realistic, in that there's so much detail going on in the background that it's almost hyper realistic that you don't see that much in real life. So it's like, yeah, that they're getting so realistic they're starting to look fake again, which is kind of weird. It's a weird take. I get it. Look, I'm going to say it, Party Animals. I can't wait for Party Animals. Game of Show, Party Animals. Not really. I think Game of Show is Elden Ring. Like, I think whether you're looking forward to Elden Ring or not, it's on a scale of Cyberpunk 2 years before, or a year, whatever it was, a year before. It's on the size of The Last of Us 2, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever it was now. That's the scale that Elden Ring is at in terms of hype. So I think that is probably Game of Show.
Yeah. Nice.
Biggest disappointment will be, I think
E3
we might
Nintendo.
be E3. Yeah.
E3, yeah.
Lack of a Switch Pro being announced somewhere, I think, is pretty high up there. I think that's probably the biggest one.
I think if we're talking biggest disappointments, Nintendo. But I think Dill's right. I think E3 could be summed up as just disappointing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Would that be saved by a potential PlayStation event in the coming weeks?
No.
If you were
But
to
it's not E3 then.
if you were to include a PlayStation, so I'm not looking at it as E3. I'm looking at it as the summer period of Game Fest nonsense.
But then that's just individual announcements, and as an individual announcement, I think that's fine. But having this big, it's like when Nintendo announced their directs every couple of months, and they just show us fucking 40 minutes of JRPGs and fucking Burger Tycoon 26. Like,
You have to remember that's a
doesn't
lot of
warrant-
Nintendo's player base.
That's the thing. It's for that market, and same way Xbox. It's like everyone's just harping on about Game Pass. It's like Game Pass is great, but it doesn't warrant a place as an E3 announcement. Like,
I think Game Pass by itself did when it was first announced.
yeah,
But
100%.
I think highlighting how much is coming to Game Pass with no extra cost and on day one, that itself is worth hyping about, because they announced they showed off 30 games and 27 of them are Game Pass day one. Like, that's subscription setup. Now I know, like, some of this I'm not interested in.
27 games that I probably won't play though.
But if you play
just the
one a
reality
month,
of it.
if you play one game a month for €15,
I'm not arguing the service. The
more
service is
your-
fantastic. I have it. I play fucking Sea of Thieves on it. I love the service, but I just don't.
I think in a world where nothing is cheap anymore, for something to be that good value, I think that's why it gets as much conversation time as it does, because there's not a lot that is that good value anymore.
Yeah.
But everything that was announced, though, was it clarified if they were coming to PC Game Pass as well, or is it just Xbox?
Some of them, not all of them.
Yeah, because I noticed a lot of them.
A lot of them were
also Xbox Game Pass or something, rather than just Game Pass.
Game Pass, yeah.
No, a lot of them.
Yeah.
I think anything that's first party is usually Game Pass day one. Anything that's partnerships is generally not PC day one.
And it probably will.
Does that make sense?
Down the
if
line.
that makes sense.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
So the likes of Halo
like
Halo Infinite will be PC and Xbox Game Pass day one. Starfield is Xbox and PC Game Pass day one. But the likes of, I'm trying to pick one out here off
Outriders, for example, that wasn't.
Yeah, or Diablo 2, I think is Game Pass day one for console, but not PC. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong, but yeah.
Like that makes me feel like I need to buy an Xbox to get those. Then it's like fuck.
Yeah,
and that's the appeal of Game Pass, is that kind of.
Like, to me, Game Pass is already established as up there with Netflix. It's the Netflix of gaming. So if whoever owns Netflix, every time they had an event, they were like, "It's all coming to Netflix." It's like, we know it's a thing. Like,
I guess it's just
you do have to look at it.
Goes for Xbox One and Series S. You just go, "Oh, it's also Game Pass." It just needs its own logo. I think to highlight.
I think over time that will die down a bit, but I think they're still in the process of disrupting the market, disrupting the PlayStation market.
Yeah.
So, it's just to finish it off on that. Do PlayStation need to do an event over the next month or so to reply to that Xbox one? Or do you think PlayStation will be sitting there going, "It was great, but we can bide our time"?
Do I think
need to focus on distributing more PS5s?
Like, do I think they need to respond specifically to Microsoft's one? No. Do I want them to do something? Yes. But I don't think there was anything in the Microsoft one that kind of like disrupts PlayStation's plan or makes people go, "Oh, Microsoft are after pulling ahead." We all know what Microsoft were doing, so it's not a surprise.
And a lot of titles are going to be on PlayStation as well.
I think it caught the Bethesda announcement that Starfield was Xbox exclusive. We all knew it was going to be. We all knew day one.
Those people are morons.
Yeah, like day one,
we went. Not think that was exclusive.
And I think that caught some people by a naive surprise. They're like, "Wait, what? It's not coming with the PlayStation?" Like, the Bethesda director came out and said, "Yeah, all I can say is sorry." Get it on Xbox.
It's the same for God of War. Like, God of War.
You can and you can't, because God of War was always a PlayStation exclusive.
Last of Us. There you go. There's another one.
It was always a PlayStation exclusive, though. Whereas Starfield,
they're new.
But Bethesda games always came to PlayStation. So Starfield is going to be the first high-profile Bethesda game to not come to PlayStation, and that was obviously going to be the case. But I think
wasn't this announced at the acquisition that they were developing?
No, they kind of said some will, some won't.
Well, you can kind of read the room and understand they're investing so much money into this.
People were just being.
The smaller games are coming out. Yeah,
I don't even think they will. Why would you?
I say some of them will, where maybe they're trying to get a market in a smaller.
Maybe.
In a smaller space, but those massive, like Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Starfield, anything massive like that, even probably the next Doom, is not coming to PlayStation.
No, it's not. I would. No, it's not.
They're all exclusive.
Does it bother me? No.
No. I have a PC and I have a PlayStation, so I have access to both. If it was a case of if they announced, Elder Scrolls 6 is not coming to PC until a year after launch, I'll go, "That's fine, Uncle Phil. I'll go buy an Xbox." Because I'm an adult who can do this. Like,
looking at this list here, Guardians is coming out on PlayStation. Avengers DLC, PlayStation. Diablo, PlayStation. Rainbow Six, PlayStation. Battlefield, PlayStation. Tina's, PlayStation. Elden Ring, PlayStation. They don't need to announce anything because everything's been announced for them. The only thing they could do to knock everything out of the market is standalone titles or an upgrade to their PlayStation Now.
I still think they will respond in some way. I don't think they'll do a big showcase, a big 2-hour showcase, but I think we might get an extended direct, which would include a God of War trailer plus a title for God of War. I don't think we get a release date. We get a
It's
release
not
date.
No,
that's a
Oh,
holding
is
title.
it?
It's a
Oh,
holding
I thought it
title.
was called God of War Ragnarok.
No, it
okay.
might end up being called that, but no, that's not the official confirmed title. I think we'll get a Horizon release date pretty shortly. But aside from that, I think it was a ballsy move to release Ratchet and Clank the day E3 started. But with the reception Ratchet and Clank has received, it's gone, yeah, PlayStation are fine. They're doing fine. And I think actually have this.
Yeah.
They're both doing their own
the
things. Yeah, they're both doing their own things. Xbox are doing one thing, PlayStation are doing another thing, and both are currently doing very successfully in different ways. I think this conversation came up. I can't remember who it was like, oh, PlayStation have to review their AAA games being launched as exclusives as €7 titles. I was like, no, they don't. I was like, they are still super successful. Yes, Xbox are expanding their exclusive catalog, and they are really pushing Game Pass, and that is proving to be very successful and well received by gamers everywhere. PlayStation are releasing really high quality AAA games still. Returnal, Ratchet and Clank, Demon's Souls, Horizon's coming, God of War is coming, and they will all release the €70-80 titles and be very well received and also be very successful in what they're doing. So I don't think PlayStation will change anything about their business plan for the foreseeable future, because they don't need to. They simply don't need to. Elder Scrolls coming to Xbox exclusive, something that big, if it's well received, might put a spanner in the works. But what PlayStation have been doing since the launch of the PlayStation 4 has worked.
But
massively.
Like that, because it's been going on for so long, we know they're developing all these in the background.
Yeah.
We know it's coming. They don't need to be like Xbox and say, oh, just to reiterate, we are actually thinking about making this game sometime in the future. It's like, we know this is happening.
Yeah. And it's something that I pick up. It's something that I picked up from my IRL job. I won't talk about what it is because people don't want to know that. It's boring. Well, maybe people do. I don't care. But when a business comes in to us, one of the first questions we ask is, how are you disrupting the market? How are you going to disrupt what's already there? And that is what Xbox are doing right now. Game Pass is disrupting what PlayStation are. Game Pass is to disrupt what PlayStation are doing. Acquiring Bethesda is to disrupt what PlayStation are doing. Because PlayStation, you can say they got the hubris again from the PS2 era and they're sleeping at the wheel. Maybe they are, but they're still successful while they're doing it. And Xbox, what Xbox is doing is to disrupt that. PlayStation are doing absolutely fine as they are doing.
Like, if Xbox tried to do the PlayStation route, it would take
Didn't work.
4 to 5 years. No, like if they started now with the acquisitions and stuff, it would still take another 4 to 5 years. So Game Pass fills that gap nicely.
You know what would happen? Batman vs Superman Part 2. It would be like DC trying to catch up with Marvel too quickly. Rather than just build your catalog, build your universe, build what you
Game
offer.
Pass fills that void
Boom.
nicely.
100%.
But yeah.
Still interesting to watch it all unfold. And the more good games that we get, the better.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
We're the winners.
I think that's us then, is it?
Close enough. Just to touch on a couple of little pieces of news that was away from E3. It's on Game Pass. It's about Xbox. We talked about it earlier ourselves before we started. In that, it's kind of gone under the radar a bit in the news, which is kind of weird because it's actually fantastic what they're doing. In that Xbox, I don't think it's live yet, but you're gonna be able to stream next gen games, the likes of Forza 5, Microsoft Flight Sim, Starfield when it comes out. Your Xbox One or your Xbox One X, S, SAT edition, whatever Xbox One you have, is going to be able to stream those games through xCloud for as long as xCloud exists. So it means that Xbox One you have sitting under your telly is not going to become redundant in the next 2 to 3 years just because the Series X has taken over, which is great. And then the other little piece of news is that Cyberpunk is returning to the PlayStation 4 store, +5 store, next week. After been off it for 6 months after all the shenanigans. So hopefully the next gen update isn't too far behind so we can start getting some new content. That's all I've got this week. Stephen, I thought you'd crashed there for a second because you hadn't blinked in about 30 seconds and you were looking in one place. I was like, oh, he's gone again. But yeah, I have nothing else. I have nothing else this week. I enjoyed that chat though. I do love this time of year. Even if E3 was a bit of a letdown or a total letdown for some people, I still enjoy it. I still enjoyed Xbox's conference. Ubisoft was okay. The rest was kind of hit and miss. Nintendo's was, for me, a miss. I know some people really excited for Metroid.
Miss.
I know some people are really excited for Metroid. The announcement for Breath of the Wild 2 didn't really satisfy me because it's so far out. It was like, wait, that's another year and a half away potentially. Okay, and no Switch
That's
Pro.
how dodgy
No
they
Switch.
were on it.
Like with the build,
Yeah.
with the hype, like there's been talk about a Switch Pro for 6 months, 12 months, and there's no sign of it. Like it makes me nervous.
I wouldn't be.
It makes me nervous.
I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't exist.
I can't say I worry for Nintendo because I think Nintendo will be just fine regardless. But
Yeah.
I'm concerned about where Nintendo's position currently stands in gaming. In that PlayStation have their exclusives and they're pushing their exclusives and they'll continue to do that. And they're bringing some of those exclusives to PC. Which is, it's after launch, it's a year or 2 or 3 years after the launch of the game. But they are expanding into PC. Xbox are expanding their library of exclusives with all the Bethesda stuff, and I'm sure they'll acquire more. And Game Pass is what it is. Whereas Nintendo, it's like, what are Nintendo really doing? For me, they're releasing a Pokemon game at the end of the year, great. They're releasing another Pokemon game next year, great. But those games don't feel contemporary in comparison to the likes of Ratchet and Clank. Like, holy fuck, that game is ridiculous for what it is. So I'm a bit concerned about where Nintendo are currently at, but that's just me. That's
Nintendo to me are always
it's a subjective opinion. I'm fully aware of that. If I didn't have to own a Switch for Pokemon, I wouldn't.
What were you gonna say, Dill?
Just in terms of Nintendo's first party titles, like it's I'm not saying it's niche, but it wasn't those for me.
Yeah, me neither.
I enjoy the Pokemons. I'm Mario's great, but all these kind of Rabbids and all that kind of it's if it's for you, it's for you. If you're like an Arix and obsessed with that kind of, but I more so I enjoy the fucking AAA titles coming over the Switch.
No, I was a little
play
bit just.
portability.
I know I get a lot of hate for if I said this on Twitter, so I haven't said it. And no one on Twitter is listening to this, so it's fine. I was a bit disappointed by Metroid. Like, don't get me wrong, it looks
Never played
great.
it. I've no interest.
It looks great.
Yeah.
Like, the graphics look great and all that. But it's still that 2D side-scrolling kind of game. I was really hoping they would make either an over-the-shoulder action adventure shooter or a first-person shooting game in that universe and really go all in with it. So I was a little bit disappointed that didn't happen. But that's just my opinion.
Well,
that's
it's
what I
why
want.
Pokemon games haven't changed, because if the formula works, what's the point?
Exactly. Exactly.
We all want open world Pokemon, but
It's not happening ever.
it's not worth the risk for them.
It's not happening ever. Anyway, I think that's really it for this week.
Yeah, that was a good one.
We made up for
A lot
last
to
week.
talk about.
We made up for the short one last week with a long one this week, but I think we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, a lot to talk about.
Or not.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
shy.
we're back in a couple of weeks with a PlayStation event. That'd be pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing about Nintendo, actually, co-streaming was a fuck up. GG, guys, go back to the 90s.
Oh, yeah. Jeez, forgot that.
They're fucking unreal. But anyway, yeah, that's really been us. Thank you. Look at my sweat patch. It's warm in this room.
I was just going to say.
It's warm in this room. I didn't open the window. It's warm tonight. But yeah, one of you guys have fun signing us off.
Steven, take it away.
Yeah, that's been episode 20.
Episode
That means
20.
we've been doing
GG, we're doing all right.
Yeah, it's been over 20 weeks we've been
20
doing this.
weeks, yeah.
20 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it has been 20 weeks, yeah.
Well, it's probably been like 21 because we've missed a week.
Oh, that's true, yeah, because Destiny, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but do you know what? I've enjoyed it, and I'm sure you two have as well.
Yeah.
So if you've been listening, thank you. This has been episode 20, our roundup of E3. Tune in again next week for God knows what, because we're not like that. And this is Steven signing off. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.